I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Waterford Board to order on November 13th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Start with the approval of the town board minutes dated October 9th, 2023, and special minutes dated October 9th, October 12th, and October 30th, 2023, as printed. We've been busy. Anyone make a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve all the minutes. I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Treasurer's report. As of November 1st, general and tax checking, $39,902.73. General operating money market, $535,879.36. Reserve funds, $1,464,820.43. And undesignated ARPA funds, $184,614.11. And thank you, Heather, for that information. Approval to pay claims as presented, please.
Also move.
And including the extra list that was at your stations. There was more that came in.
Yeah, I'll make a approval for that too. I'll second that.
Thank you. In any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carried. Correspondence, we did receive a letter from Joe Maney, and we will be talking about that later on, so we'll get that covered today. All right, committee reports, police department.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Looking over these stats from October, we were assigned a total of 175 calls for service, 6 crime preventions, and 30 building checks, 44 traffic citations, and 30 written warnings, 2 misdemeanor arrests, 3 ordinance violations, 1 OWI arrest, 7 vehicle crashes, 2 warrant arrests, and 2 domestic abuse arrests. As far as water patrol, we're completing the annual report. We had a drug take back on October 30th, 9 boxes, 90 pounds were taken. We've got our new lockers that were installed back there with the donations. We've got some new office chairs. We worked the deal out with Community Bank for their chairs were in great condition. We had 11 of those at $50 a chair, normally about $350 to $400. And also they're giving us a new refrigerator for the back room and a table. It's, I think, back there. And then the donation check to cover that was from Ken Drilling for $550. Special thank you to Chief Miller and Stephanie Miller from the Michigan Fire Department for completing and providing us the training for our CPR, AED, and Narcan at their firehouse, and they provided lunch for us. So that was extremely generous and very, very much appreciated. So please let the chief know. I told him that today when I saw him briefly, but you guys are doing a bunch of hose work, so it looked terrible, so I didn't want to stick around. That's all I have.
The only thing I'd like to add is that for trick or treat, we did have 2 probation parole officers ride with us for 2 of our officers, and we did do compliance checks within the town and the village.
Thank you.
How's the job posting going for the new chief?
That's a Tina question. I have no part of that. It's posted.
Oh, I thought you guys had it posted.
We posted it, but all the responses are going right to the town clerk.
Oh, okay.
She has a few.
Yeah, we've had a few resumes.
It's in the process.
Yes.
I just know of one.
And I have one item. I received an email from Officer Schweitzer, who just happened to walk in, regarding a crash on Marsh Road near the larger DNR parking lot where the big curve is. I went out there over the weekend, took a look at it, took some pictures and talked to Ken about it this morning. There is a large yellow curb sign northbound and southbound, but maybe there's some additional signage we could put there. The front end of the car is still in the ditch. You just missed that, concrete culvert that's damaged it slightly. They're asking about chevron markers or guideposts, so, we're gonna look at adding some additional signage there to make that safer. 3 accidents in a row in the same place is pretty unusual, so.
Can I ask, you know, if speed was a factor in that?
Pardon?
If speed was a factor?
Well, I don't really know. I walked the whole site and you can see where the tracks are, where the car went in. The road curves to the right. But the car suddenly made a left turn, almost a 90-degree turn in the opposite direction. So if there was some distraction, if there was an animal, or a medical emergency, I don't know what happened. I have no idea, but, you know, it seemed clear that something went wrong at that intersection. You think they would have skidded off to the right if they would have?
If you don't mind, we can ask Officer Schweitzer.
Sure.
Yeah.
What were any contributing factors to the crash?
Well, the reason I sent the email was just because we noticed that in the last couple of months, there was 3 at that intersection, which just seems like kind of a lot. The most recent one was actually northbound. They just drove straight through the culvert into a tree. Obviously, there's driver factors. Nobody should leave the roadway. But a motorcycle overshot it not long ago, and the driver and the passenger were both ejected. So we know it should be on the drivers, but it just seems to be kind of a popular curve for issues.
Maybe a little bit more warning is what, you're looking for additional warning?
Yeah, just to see if
Fire.
any other signage, based on you and Kenny to take a look at it, if that might help reduce some of these.
Driving northbound, there's a utility pole with a small blue sign for, I think, bicycles or pedestrians or something. Maybe we could put a larger arrow sign there that would be more eye-catching. But there are 2 signs, you know, one in each direction, big yellow signs indicating curve. But you know, with that many accidents, we're looking at adding some additional signage there. So
Yeah, it just seemed to be a problem intersection, that's all.
yeah, and the whole grill is still there with the license plate and the Hyundai symbol, and must have been really, really going at a rapid rate of speed.
Yeah, that's what we really do.
Do we know if the person might have had a medical emergency or something?
They were cited for inattentive driving.
Okay. Yeah, because it seemed like suddenly they just swerved 90 degrees left for some reason.
Well, that, where the car was actually because they impacted the tree, which actually bounced the car back
Oh,
to that
okay.
position. So they, based on tire marks, they just went straight, they just did not turn at all.
You know, we've been plenty complaints of speed on that road, and I know you guys have been hopefully trying to deter that, so.
And it should be decreasing now that it is open, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have, we did do stats for Traffic Safety Commission I was recently at. I'm sorry, I don't have them with me tonight, but we wrote, I want to say in the upward about 180 citations just during the
Yeah.
summer months or during the closure
Yeah.
months, so plus the warnings.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Gail. Michigan Fire?
So for the month of October, we had 27 calls, 18 of which were EMS, 3 fire, 2 boat rescue, and 4 car accidents. In October as well, we had a lot of events for Fire Safety Week. We went to Washington Caldwell. Washington Caldwell also had a coloring contest there with us. And then we did our open house and family pictures. We did trunk or treat at Trailside. We went to the Waterford Place for their first responder appreciation event. We went to trunk or treat at Elder Care. We went to Golden Meadows and passed out glow sticks for their trick or treating. We hosted a blood drive. On Halloween day, we drove around the local subdivisions in the area and handed out glow sticks to those that were trick or treating. And then this past Saturday, we went to Party for a Purpose on Halverson Road, where they were raising money for the Hope Center at Waukesha. And then our final CPR dates for the year will be Saturday, December 2nd, Wednesday, December 13th. And then our final first aid class will be Wednesday, December 13th as well.
And thank you so much, and I'm glad that so many people are here to hear a lot of the things that Michigan Fire does for the community, very service oriented. So thank you very much for everything. We really appreciate it. We're doing, seeing you at a few things and appreciate it. On those lines with Michigan Fire, I know what we were talking about and discussing the ordinance related to public and private roads, access to public and private roads to ensure safety, and also a lockbox system. Again, Attorney Dubus looked into some things, and we all have that in our packet. Does anyone want to start discussion on either of those?
Well, the Knox box is something that most communities have. It's a, you know, good idea, so the fire department can get in a lot quicker rather than breaking a door and that down. Mr. Dubus had a question on, I believe it was 2A subsection 3. I remember.
Well, there's two things really, I don't know why the fire department needs our permission, number one, for this lockbox, and number two, because of a change in the master plan, the property that wasn't necessarily requiring that type of access, not actually lockbox feature now does. So I don't know if that justifies, how do I put it, the lockbox being obligated on that piece of property just because of a change in the master plan. That's all. But I don't know why they really need our permission to implement this. That's a question I don't know the answer to. When I say they, I mean the fire department.
Do they have authority otherwise to mandate, building requirements?
We contract with them to promote,
Well, that's up
fire
to debate as
safety
well.
within the town of Waterford, and we don't tell them how to exercise their discretion in doing that. I would think, I think what they're asking, like Doug says, is good. I think it's important. But I'm just saying, I don't know, number one, why they need our permission, but if they do, that's fine. But number two, I do think that perhaps one of those type of establishments that is now subject to the ordinance, perhaps wouldn't have to be subject to it merely because of a change in the master plan. I mean, that doesn't mean the facility itself is obligated. They may have a comment on this, the fire department. It's not a big deal. It's just one thing at least. And on the private roads, we had this exact issue come up, I'm gonna say 35 years ago, exact same thing. And I talked to Tony a little bit about this. There's a road in the town, which we don't have to name which one, that the same issue arose, and I guess it's one that the fire department's still having a problem with. It's on the east side of the township. And there was a property owner there that had refused to maintain the roadway, but when they found out that perhaps the insurance rates might be affected for the homeowner's insurance, you know, that in a possible effect there and possible effect of a citation, they voluntarily complied. So I don't know if you've got a widespread across the whole town or it's just a few areas. So I mean, some of the roads are too small to even, I don't even know how you could maintain some of these roadways, they're so tiny. And they don't affect all of them, by the way. We have roads in town of, you know, in Atlanta Park and Waterford Woods that, if you look on the plat map, it says public road, but they haven't been a public road for 100 years. They're going over with trees, they're cut by the neighbors, they were never laid out. I mean, they were never worked ever. So I don't know how many roads we're actually even talking about here. Do you? So I
I
mean,
think it was just all public roads in general in the
you mean all private roads are bad?
I believe that's what Chief Miller.
Well, Blue Heron's gotta be good, right? I think those are private roads.
Yeah.
That whole subdivision, you know. I don't think you mean like that one.
I don't know, you'd have to ask Chief Miller, but I think his main concern was us getting an engine or an ambulance back there.
No. All I'm suggesting, if you just told me which roads we're talking about, because it can't all be bad. I mean,
I'll get a list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the question, and, you know, it would be common sense, and it would be a good thing, right, to have a lockbox on your, so they can get in and put out a fire, or, you know, to make sure you can get through the street so they can get through. But then the question comes in, you know, how much authority do we have to force people to do things if they don't wanna do it? I guess, you know, I would want the fire department to come to my house, but, do we wanna have the authority to force people to do things like that? So that's the question.
I know that sort of came up a little bit at last, just discussion wise at last month's meeting, so. All I'm saying is that, both are good things, but I don't necessarily think though we have to legislate them. Or whether we can get compliance without legislation.
Well, last month, I think there was a suggestion to get input from business owners. I don't know if anybody contacted any local business owners to see how they feel about the Knox box. And what the cost would be. Do you know what the cost would be plus installation? Pardon?
I do not.
Chief said it was around $200 for the box plus installation.
Okay.
I have had some input from people. I absolutely trust you guys with my life. I have had some input from people saying, you know, who will have access to the keys. I mean, they don't know who's gonna have access or whatever. And I personally feel that, you know, that's up to them if they wanna have it. So, you know, but as a board, we need to decide if it's something that we're going to, yes.
I think another factor in that would again be who would be liable if something did happen, somebody did break in, use that to gain unlawful entry or steal something. Okay, now who's liable? Is it just another car company? Is it town board? Who's liable for that?
That's why we have insurance.
That's a good question.
Any more? So I guess I'm leaving it up to the board. What do you?
Move to table both of these items until we can get some answers to the questions that have been asked. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you can have the chief get us a list and look at the Knox box thing, we can talk about that a little bit later.
Thank you. Waterford Fire, you've got information?
I did
from them?
get, Tina got it. They said they responded to 11 EMS calls in the contracted portion of the town for the month of October.
Thank you. And again, I know you guys are working very well together. Really good to hear, and I really appreciate that. So thank all you guys for doing that. All right, WWMD. Good evening.
Good evening. Get closer to you all. The WWMD does plan for transitions. We try to get some redundancy on our board with our commissions and things and committees. And I'd like to report in 2022 and throughout 2023, Luke Francois volunteered his time in supporting our treasurer with accounting and bookkeeping functions. During our board meeting in late October, longtime commissioner and treasurer Margaret Shoptow has announced her retirement, and we have appointed Luke Francois to the board, and he is the new treasurer for WWMD. So we see a smooth transition and all that taking place. Also, I'd like to report that per our 2024 budget meeting that we had in late September of this year, we have added a part-time administrator to help out with our board and our functions. And that's my report. Any
Thank
questions?
you. Any questions, anyone? Any questions out there? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Kenny Park?
Well, park's closed for the season, and that's all I really have for the park. Regarding the road department, there's a couple of grants I'd like to talk about. You guys have the information on online. On the figures and numbers. Don't forget there's two. There's a supplemental one behind it.
For the pulverizing?
Yeah. So, Norway has already approved theirs. The lowest bidder,
Okay.
Van Dolen on that. He did it at their last meeting.
And Norway has already,
Approved, yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
So do we need a motion also to approve?
yeah, we did,
Just to recap, that's an 80-20 grant. There's still gonna be more bills for engineering as
sure.
moving on. So once it's approved tonight,
Yeah.
that paperwork goes over to the engineer, and there's more paperwork that needs to be signed after that, and then we can move forward.
So you
That's that grant for the
yeah.
town line. The next one, it's complicated, which is Granite Park Road.
Well, should we approve this one first? so we
Yeah,
don't
let's do
forget?
that, let's do that first. So I need motion to award the bid to Payne and Dolan.
Okay, I'll make that, I'll approve that motion.
With
I'll
the
second.
supplemental also, the supplemental and.
Yep, and the supplemental 15,890.
I'll second.
All, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The next one, I'll try to make it short and sweet regarding Vienna Park Road. Tried twice now to get a grant for that road. Once without a pedestrian pathway along Vienna Park Road, and then another one with it. We're gonna try to submit that again, but through further review with paperwork, there's towns and villages when it comes to the grants, same money pool, but two separate entities. I can't do a joint grant with the village on that because it comes out of two different pots.
Okay.
So we may be able to do this. We'll find out on Wednesday. There's a meeting at Missing County. Find out if their meeting for the villages, same meeting we have for the transportation aids is right after ours. So they might be able to file for the same grant together, but not together.
Together
It's
separately.
confusing.
Yeah.
But moving forward, there's a lot of moving parts with that regarding the pedestrian pathway, because the villages want it. You're talking all the way down Vienna Park Road to Kramer. And then it's ours until they get to Huron Drive, then it starts the town again. So, the jobs. So, last time they would be on the hook for quarter mil to do their section, and we would have the rest. It's a 50-50 grant. A lot of money involved, so maybe we have a couple of supervisors and myself and talk to the village. That's the next step, to see if they even want to proceed with that. Can't make them do it. No sense us doing it alone. Just doesn't make any sense to put a pathway to nowhere. So, and how many people are gonna use it is the next one. People talk about right-of-way paths and so on. Do you want both sides of the road, one side of the road, maintenance, the whole thing? So it's gonna be a big decision moving forward. We'll have more answers Wednesday. We meet with all the engineers from Racine County, all the projects will be laid out. And we can see where we go, but the village isn't gonna give it an answer by Wednesday. So we may have to apply without the pedestrian pathway. Typically, to get a grant like that, you want joint jurisdictional roads like town line, but it's the town and village. Combining those two together is gonna be, could be difficult. That could be 3 to 4 year process.
Well, thank you, Kenny. Does anyone want to work with Kenny, with the village to get more information or add?
No, certainly no.
Yeah. Then with that,
I can go through that.
with Dale and Doug on board, we still need to go through the process of how we're gonna fix the culvert on, 36 and Kramer. We fixed it, but it needs to be fixed all the way. It's pretty bad. It's fixed for now, but it's only temporary. That's gonna be a large fix. So that's gonna have to get addressed.
Okay. So you two want to follow up?
Could you contact our state representative on that?
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
that's
gonna
true.
say,
I'll do that. And you guys follow up.
One last thing, I know Dale, you mentioned the Pacerware numbers.
Right,
I did get that from the engineer, but it won't print out on something so small. He's making bigger ones.
okay,
I'll have those on Wednesday.
okay, good.
So then we can look at all the roads moving forward, come up with a plan
Yeah,
master plan.
An unbelievable plan to get these roads done. Um, And we'll go from there, but
Okay.
we have the Pacerware ratings up to date as of last week. And then that helps us with the grant stuff when it comes to the ratings. You look at the ratings first. On any grant, you look at the ratings.
to get back to Kramer and 36, believe it or not, the state believes that municipality should maintain these culverts that drain Highway 36. On the east side of the road, you've got crossover. On the west side of the road, you've got a road that goes back to Runsheimer's. And there was a hole there and Ken actually crawled into the culvert. That culvert had been repaired once, but not replaced. And it's a 140-foot culvert that drains 36. And the state likes to compare that to, well, it's like a driveway coming off a town road. Well, not exactly. That's not apples for apples. I can't believe that the state is not responsible for maintaining that. So if we get a hold of Representative Whitke, have him look into that state statute and see if they can change that, because we don't have the equipment or the manpower to change a 140-foot culvert. My God, that's crazy.
And there's not very many homes on that road.
No,
Right, right.
no, but it does go back to all those apartments in Runtime or so, but usually they probably come off 164, so. But anyway, it's just,
What
and our
happened?
town engineer thought, we met out there with Greg Governatore, and he said, no, the road right away is way back there. You guys don't know that culvert, but then they found out, yeah, according to state statutes, that's the way they interpret it, so. Seems very unfair, so.
Well,
Did
with that,
anybody ever look into liability on that thing? You're talking a lot of money here.
Liability regarding.
Yeah, that culvert thing, you
Yeah.
ever look into that, look at the old
Yeah.
records and that, to see?
I don't think so, but the last time it must have been repaved, it was patched, because it kind of has pictures of it.
No, I mean, you're talking about repairing a culvert or replacing one, right?
Right.
How much does this cost?
Oh, I have no idea.
oh, it's gonna be a big project.
That's what I'm saying, so I mean, that used to be, well, that was Village of Waterford property.
Let's tell
No, it's the town on
Well,
the west side.
Runtimers was Village of Waterford, that was annexed.
Yeah, but that farmhouse right there is still town.
Yeah, but where's the water coming from?
It's going down 30, it's draining Highway 36
Yeah.
from north to south.
It could be coming out, it could be coming up from the town of Norway too.
Basically, that's where it's coming from, yes.
Sure. It's not just our
Because it's
water.
running towards the village that way.
That's right, there's a drainage district up there, a prime drainage district, and it goes down that way.
No, but thank goodness kind of the DPW were able to, at least make a temporary patch to keep it functioning for a while.
All I'm saying is before you spend a lot of money, somebody really should look at that, because I know there's a drainage district there, I know it comes to the town of Norway, and I know it affects a bunch of the farms up in Norway coming down this way. Going from north to south.
Okay, well, thanks. That's good
Yeah.
input, Mike.
And also contact Wikis.
Yeah, because basically, I was out there too when they were patching it, and it's definitely state right away.
Yeah, well, you can't miss it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, why should we be responsible?
Yeah. So,
Then, with that said, with the right of way, half the road's village and half the road is ours for a while, it kind of does this, because there's two properties in the town.
Yeah.
What's the future of that road?
That's what I said. If they say we gotta fix it, maybe we should look at closing it.
The future of it is it has really no use for us. Portion of it is ours, we don't even maintain it. Village does, they gotta go through there, have the stairs, that it's ours, but we haven't plowed that in 25 years.
All right, we'll contact Upton and Ricky, see what he has to say, and then we'll
Go
go
from there.
from there, yeah. Thank you,
And-
Ken.
That's all I have.
and your department fixed the salt shed, 3 of those posts, so it looks really good. So I think we're stable for a while, so we can get a contractor to repair them.
Yeah.
So,
Unless you overfill it.
Thanks, guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
thanks,
overfill
Jim,
it,
too.
please.
I won't.
All right, moving on, planning, yeah,
There's no planning question, nothing on the thing.
no meeting this
Building
month,
inspector, $4,063 in permits.
thank you. Old business, we've got the Root Pike, watershed initiative. Basically, you know, if we don't have them do this for us, we are responsible to fulfill the DNR's requirements, which we're not gonna wanna do on our own. So it's just the contract for the new year that needs to be signed by December 15th. I would like a motion to go ahead with that, please.
That is a 2-year contract, right? 2024 and 2025. So
Yeah,
that's,
it's for 3478.
yep, for 2 years. So
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve that payment and to authorize the chairperson to sign that document.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, new business. Parking on Beach Drive. And it's actually just not parking on Beach Drive, it's just parking in the town of Waterford. So we do have an ordinance that says no parking on town roads, right? I've seen it when I was taking my son driving. Even though I was hanging on like this, I still noticed the signs that said no parking on town roads. And so I really don't, to me, this shouldn't be, I mean, we just have an ordinance that says no parking on town roads. The reason we have this ordinance, the reason really for any rule, as any parent would know, is usually for safety reasons, right? I know that a fire truck is about 10 feet wide. You know, cars are about 6 feet wide. When you have an area of road, especially down there, at the end of Beach, that's like 17 feet wide, does it really make sense to allow cars to park there in case emergency needs to get down there? So I'll let everyone else discuss it, but I feel we have an ordinance and the ordinance just needs to be enforced. Now, it's not saying that we can't have, you know, something special. If someone's having a party or something, they can call up and get maybe a special dispensation just for one time and then park maybe just on one side of the street and from a certain time to a certain time. And we contact the fire department, maybe that's something we can look at. But I don't think under any circumstances you should have any unwritten rules, any favors for any whatever. I mean, we have an ordinance for a reason and it should be followed. So on that note, I'll let everyone else tell me what they think.
I'll speak to it if I can.
I'm sorry?
I'll speak to it if I could.
Come up and say his name and address.
I'm sorry?
He needs to come up with.
Sure.
I own.
Can you state your name and address?
Yes, thank you for having us today. You just said for special occasions. Oh, I'm sorry.
You do your name and.
Name and address.
Chris Ackman, 5630 Island View Court. You just stated for special events. Whenever the watering hole has a band or any special event, we call the police department and we also call the town and let them know that that special event is happening. So if it's 100%, we cannot have one side or the other road to park for our special events. You gotta understand that has to go across the community. It has to go, the entire beach road, most people have 2, maybe 3 cars of parking in there. So that means when they have a graduation party, a birthday party, a wedding, anniversary party, that goes for them too.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
So-
people often call for that. So-
Right, and I'm here to tell you, other than maybe the Lions Club, I have the most amount of parking. And my understanding, or my thought would be if anybody ever had a party, they can use my parking lot. I want to be a neighbor. But understand, to me, my way of thinking is as long as I contact, and this is what I've been told, as long as I contact the police department, let them know, hey, this is coming up, or the town, this is coming up. Then that's the process. If it's not, I don't know. If there's a permit that somebody has to take, I'm more than happy to take a permit. We had on October 28th, Halloween, we had the Halloween party. Okay, we had at the establishment. Busiest night since I've owned the company. We had 1 car park on the north side of the road. 1 car the entire night. As soon as we found out that was a problem, the car was moved. So it wasn't that anybody wasn't willing to move it. We did move it when available parking became available. I'll be honest with you, I had no idea there was available parking. I had bigger problems, good problems, serving people, like serving the community. Everybody was having a great time. So as soon as I was only aware because of the police came. So Officer Howley, so I knew they were there, the police were there, I went outside, we had our discussions, some was good, some wasn't, and we moved the car. And it's really the end of it. We have music twice a month right now. Odds are maybe every other 3 might have any roadway parking. I think that if we were allowed to park anywhere, I think the south side would be better because there's there actually is a shoulder. And when we talk a car parked on the roadway, we're really talking at the most, I think for our grand opening, we had 6 or 7. I mean, if I'm exaggerating, maybe it was 9. We're not talking up to the Lions Club and stuff like that. So I just need a clear understanding. You're gonna decide what you're gonna decide. I'm trying to be a good neighbor. I've put a lot of money in that place. I feel that I've improved it greatly aesthetically, and I mean, it's been a place for our community for years and years and years and years. I'm rambling a little bit, but it means a lot to me. It means a lot to the community right there. So what I'd like to do is, if I follow that protocol, then I should be allowed every bit as much as somebody has an anniversary party. And people say, well, maybe the other establishments aren't allowed to do it. They are. It happens it happens all the time. As long as people know and people are following and are being adults about the situation. If there's ever a problem, I'm willing to make whatever it takes to make it go away. It just, as long as I follow the protocols, I feel that it should be treated no different than any other resident.
So how many special event permits have you applied for?
None, I didn't know there was such a thing.
You got nothing else, huh?
Anybody?
And again, if you're at a birthday party, again, on Beach Drive, you're lucky to park 3 people in your driveway. If you have a birthday party, does that resident have to apply for a special permit?
See, I think they usually just call you guys, right?
Well, typically they call in and call the police department. I guess that, I get what you're saying, or we understand what you're saying about this, not treating you differently, but we're talking a birthday party compared to twice a month, or, you know, what it is. But we need to come up with some compromise. I get that, you're a business owner but they're also property owners, you know, here
And I
too,
respect
representing it. So there is a difference between a birthday party and, you know, that in what you're saying, but we can hopefully come as a board, come up with a compromise.
I do, but most of it, as far as I know, the complaints that have been brought to my attention is with a car parking on the grass. If we moved it to the south side, there is a shoulder quite a ways and without any houses. So I feel that would be a good option.
Does Michigan Fire want to chime in at all about, you know, cars parked on the road, being able to get down narrow roads?
I've had issues with bobbers before, when they have big events, and there's cars on both sides of the road.
Okay.
And it is a problem, can be. I mean, if it's, let's say a house fire, we're gonna move your car. We don't care who you are, we'll get your car out of the way one way or another. It's just what's gonna happen. I see why there's an ordinance.
Somebody else?
Hilltop has come before this board numerous times looking for permission to do things that would include parking on the roads. And every time this board has said no for safety reasons. I think what's good for one establishment needs to be good for all the establishments. Obviously with enforcement, if nobody calls, you don't know about it. but when the call is made, the ordinance is on the books. And unless there's some special dispensation that's approved, it needs to be fair across the board. The ordinance is what it is, and if the board wants to do something, to have a workaround for that, I'm more than willing to entertain that, but for right now, that's the ordinance, and it's based on safety.
I agree.
Well, so,
Well, I'll interject here. The Hilltop was a whole different thing. That was music outside and bands outside.
But parking was a major issue.
Part of it was too. But if we allowed a couple months and they didn't take advantage of that this year 3 times.
Yeah.
And they could have called it for special permit and we would have given more parking for a specific amount of time, stuff like that. I know the line remember when we used to have our fishing jamboree on lake the last 30 years or wherever, we always called in. And because that's what we did until we moved it back over the building. Now we have more than adequate parking by us to handle whatever we need to. You know, I think, you know, they have the police department, if they notify them a couple days in advance, that's what it's gonna be. And they may not be aware of that. But that's what they're gonna see. I mean, I don't have to say, we've given everybody that. Bobbers is not gonna stop doing her music. I mean, she's rocking and rolling down there, come on, I mean, so.
Yes.
We live on the south side of the road.
You can come forward.
Okay, we live on the south side of the road, and what happens is, when you come down Canal Lane, you cannot see traffic coming from the other side. And not only do you have to go around the cars that are parked there, which makes you go over the yellow line, so now you're into oncoming traffic. And that is dangerous, and if someone gets killed there, or someone gets hurt there, that's the reason the no parking signs are there.
Yes, Fran.
This is my wife, and we live on Canal Lane, and we have people coming down, turning around on our concrete, looking for a place to park. There's a spot across from me. I have to put up a no parking sign because the cars are coming there and they'll park anywhere. There's an ordinance that says no parking on any town road, and it takes enforcement. I talked to Lieutenant Nelson, and he said, yes, it needs to be enforced. We don't need ambiguity around here. You have an ordinance, follow the ordinance. There should be no specialties. No special treatment for anybody. That tavern, although it's been there for a long time, if you know the history of it, it was a winter bar when there was a summer bar on the beach. All right, it's not meant to be a playground, and that's what it's turning into. He was supposedly granted 1 picnic table, and he now has 5 sitting out there.
Okay.
All right, and the road, he talks about being a good neighbor. Canal Lane, there's potholes there, and for some reason, he refuses to fill them.
It's not my road.
Not his road, that is.
It's your easement,
No, it's not.
and the easement is part of, so, yes, it is.
Tell us
Your
your friends
easement,
own it.
Tonight we're
it's
talking
part
about
of the
parking on
homestead subdivision.
Excuse me, tonight we're talking about the parking on the town road, so thank you, we can take that up another time, Brianna.
I don't own it.
I'm just kind of tagging on the back of this because I have a question regarding the ordinance. I live on Tishigan Road.
your
And-
address, please, for that.
6616 North Tishigan Road. Again, I'm kind of Brianna Call. My apologies, I've never been to this before.
This is fun.
So I'm kind of taking onto the whole town ordinance and parking on the street. So, again, I live on Tishigan Road, I'm past the Hilltop. I know you're on Tishigan Road, and I'm sure you can attest to this, that more than a month, there's been so much work on our street by private residences where the roads are blocked off. I'm curious with the ordinance, do you require a flagger? We can't see getting around all these big trucks. Oncoming traffic is coming, we're stuck. Our road is extremely narrow. We have no shoulder. We have nothing. So I'm curious what the ordinance is regarding that.
The parking ordinance does not require a flagger because that's separate.
Yeah, that's
I don't
something
know if we have a.
So anybody doing work, having work,
No, if we have a specific ordinance towards that, I don't.
It doesn't require a flagger because it prohibits parking on the roads.
So why are we allowing all of these work trucks and cement trucks and to be parked there all day long? And yesterday, Cherry Lane, just before Cherry Lane, I believe it was, there's been multiple trucks and you can't see the oncoming traffic heading north and you're going south to get to my house and I'm.
Lieutenant Nelson.
So, what we've encouraged citizens to do is simply call in to the PD for a traffic hazard. Because I've responded to a few where they were positioned just next to the hilltop where you couldn't see around exactly what you're saying.
Mhm.
And we've had them move, or we've verified that if they are okay, they can be there with their cones, everything else, but exactly what you're mentioning is a reality, but we're dealing with it. Let your police department just handle that. We'll either have them move the vehicles or we'll ask them to pull somebody out there. Everyone's different. It's not like a catch-all.
So
culture.
we're supposed to call for each individual.
If you see
incident?
what you believe is a traffic hazard, call your police department.
Well, I mean, it is because we were stuck yesterday. We got.
Right, and then just call.
And then I'm pulling a trailer today. I can't back it up. It's bad enough. I barely have any room.
Right.
Okay.
We
The
have
other-
to, we have to work with the builders obviously too. Because if we wouldn't, your house wouldn't be there or the next one there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
And I understand that. Then, I'm kind of going to go a little bit further. I spoke with Terry about this before, the speeding on our street. We have nobody down there looking for the speeders. I mean, or watching for the traffic. How do we go about getting speed bumps or?
Yeah, and we've talked about that before and we can address it right now. We're-
No, I understand
Yeah,
the
we're talking
parking.
about the parking
Yeah, I
on
wasn't
street,
sure if that, like I said, I was taking on to his about the ordinance of parking on town
Right.
roads and how that works with, I mean, yeah, you have cones out, but if you're there for days and
I can
where are
follow.
kids supposed to go?
Yeah.
I'll follow.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Diana.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Hi, can I speak to this issue? Yes, please. Thank you. I put together a little summary just to give you some information that,
Name and address, please.
yes. I'm Julie Plants, 848 Beach Drive. I live right across the street from the watering hole. Excuse me. I won't go through the document I put together. It just really speaks to safety issues about parking on Beach Drive. But I did want to clarify a couple of points that have come up in these conversations. I would contest that it's 6 or 7 or 8 cars. There are generally cars that can go much further on Beach Drive. I personally called in a complaint about parking because as I came up the hill one day, there was a car parked on the side of the road, but because there is no shoulder, those cars have to park in the street. They literally have to. There is no other choice. And as I came up, I kind of had to come around the car and it scared me. So I called the police and I said, I'm concerned about parking on Beach Drive. It's against the town ordinance. And the response I really got was, okay, well, I'll check it out. And they do come and check it out and they do talk to people in the watering hole, but nothing really changes about the parking there. So my concern, and I understand the issue with calling in for an exception. I've done that. I had a shower at my home and I had a lot of parking and I did get the authorization to park on one side of the road and that was about 4 years ago. It's the only time I've had to do that. So it is an exception basis and I believe that is reality for people who live on these old town roads. But I don't think that 2-3 times a month is an exception. I think that's a rule and I don't think that safety on this street really allows for that kind of exception. I wanted to speak a moment to the point of calling the police because I have done that. I even stopped in the police department during the Halloween party and said, can you explain to me how this works? There is this parking ordinance, but people park there, how does this work? And the officer on duty at that time told me he didn't really know. He hadn't heard anything about anything special happening. He didn't know about any special parking allowance. So he didn't really know when I should call the chief. But I knew this was coming on the agenda today, so I didn't do that. But calling the town police when the town police don't know what the rule is around it or how to enforce it didn't really have any effect for those of us who live down there. The point about parking on the north side versus the south side, I really don't think is valid. The people here happen to be on the north side where the parking's happening. But if the parking were happening on the south side, then this audience would be people that lived on the south side. I don't think that's one side versus another. There's a pretty deep ditch there. Even if there is some shoulder, there's not enough for an entire car. It's just an old road and that's just not the way the road is. So I don't think north versus south helps this situation at all. I think there's another factor that hasn't been discussed yet, and that is that supplemental parking area that's on the Beach Drive side of the watering hole. So it's on the south side of Beach Drive, and it is a supplemental parking area that is owned by the watering hole, but it's not deep enough to accommodate the cars that park there. So you'll often get cars parked there that hang out into the road a little bit. And then you get cars parked on the south side or on the north side. So you kind of got a little serpentine thing going on there to come around when you've got them parked in both areas. And that hasn't been brought up. So I just wanted to point out that that is an additional safety issue. I understand that it's a business and you have to run the business, and there can be an occasional parking exception, but I don't think 2 to 3 times a month is an exception. I think that becomes a rule. So our request is that the ordinance be enforced and that people not park on town roads, including me and my neighbors and my birthday party or any other thing that's happening. And that's our request, is that you actually enforce the ordinance.
So to speak to your, when you came and called in October, just for clarification, mid-October, they were going on, the board was having budgetary meetings. I did come to the board and saying, after another resident that lives on the north side came to me, and that's when I became aware of the issues that were going on. So I did address the board saying, has there been anything changing? Are there any changes to it? Because there's misinformation that's out there. Because this is a topic that we had approximately 2 years ago, 2 to 3, maybe less. And that's when the signs went up. So there was some, and I asked for it to be put on this month's agenda.
Yeah, I appreciate
So
that.
that's why there was some uncertainty on what was happening.
And
or
I
not
didn't call
happening.
in anything on that day either. My point, and I stopped actually at the garage, to talk to the policeman that was sitting there. And my point was, what are the rules? What does enforce looks like? When I say please enforce, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
I can tell you, we're gonna, just like it was in front of your house, we had somebody there in their park, and we got a complaint on it, we would try to get voluntary compliance and let's move the car. If we can't contact an owner or other circumstances, then we'll cite it, and, our ordinance, I don't believe allows for towing for it, but we would try to get voluntary compliance, so.
Which I
And that's
completely
what you
agree
guys
with.
are looking for, I
Yeah,
guess.
absolutely. We're not saying make up new
Right.
rules for us or do anything different. We're just saying, let's,
Right.
and the reality is, you guys don't have the time every week to resolve a voluntary compliance issue with parking. Let's just follow the rules, and then it doesn't take more of your time.
On your angle or on the parking, you're talking on the north side of the building?
Yeah.
On the south side of the road?
Yeah.
I know that was brought up years ago in front of, mostly Dale was probably the only board member here, you might have been, and that was worked out on, I don't remember the exact details, but I thought it wasn't me as the chief, it was a previous chief, that it was something to do with angled parking, or it was painted. Linda, I think that the owner, I believe you owned it at the time. Do you recall any?
No, that must have been before me.
Okay.
That was before her.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you remember what it was?
I'm not saying
It
they
was
shouldn't be able
angled
to park there at all.
Which I think, and it was compact cars or something, because if I have my, F-350 quad cars, dual cab, it's not gonna fit there anyhow, so,
Right, but that's often what parks there. I mean, there's often trucks, not 350s,
Yeah,
150s.
I'm just saying,
And I'm not saying not to have that. I mean, those are what, 5 or 6 spots? I'm not
Needs, I
saying
guess.
not to have those. I'm just saying that exacerbates the problem when you have cars there, plus cars on the other side of the road.
So
It
that's
just makes it
another-
more narrow.
So you need something to also think about or address with this is the angle parking going back. Because you can't go straight towards the building, it's gotta have to be angled, but he does need the parking and, it used to be allowed marked parking there.
Chief, if you look in the minutes, there was an agreement reached at that time, because actually the town people at that time actually had a meeting out there and walked it down. And the road curved, if I remember.
That might have been 2 chiefs ago, actually.
Yeah, this was, I think, Ray was the chief.
Yep,
then.
yeah, so it's been a
And it
long
was an
time.
agreement, and it should be in the minutes.
Yeah.
If we have that far back.
Thank you. We do, I think
Okay,
you-
good.
But I do have.
Should we
I
sit down?
probably have
Is that what you're
recommended.
saying?
I guess my only question would be, thank you for speaking, I appreciate it.
So, yeah, I mean,
My only
obviously,
question would be, is there any resolution at all that can be worked out, or is it just flat out across the board? No parking on ordinance, but again, that's everybody, not just me.
are you talking a couple times a month you have something? I have an idea.
What's that?
It's in the Lions Club right up the road.
They did that for Halloween.
We did that
Did
for,
you guys work something out with
Yeah.
parking in the parking lot?
yeah, that's- you're not gonna be able to walk that though. It's-
No, but shuttle it or something.
I mean, that's something for you guys to think about. We understand you have a business, we're trying to run a business,
What about,
but we
you
also
know,
do have ordinances.
There's that
But
big
for
lot
everybody.
across the street from him,
But for
that
everybody,
Dick and Diane own. If they gave him written permission to use that for a special event, that'll eliminate the whole boat parking too.
They won't do it.
County told them no.
Yeah. That was the same thing with that.
Dick and Diane have already said no to that.
That's, I mean,
it's
to
illegal.
address that, I know that was an
The county
issue,
said
or
no.
that was a question that came up with the Hilltop, with the previous owner that owned land down the road, and he had mentioned that as parking. County zoning, or said that that's, it's residential, zone residential, so it can't be used as commercial.
So it'd have to be rezoned.
Correct.
If somebody
You
bought it,
would
you
have to
got it.
own it, or they would have to rezone it, yes.
Understood, so I guess I know.
How
what
many
this is.
cars can you actually park on property that you own, like
Huh.
south of the bar? Can you park cars south of the bar on those lots?
Yeah, the town won't let me put any hard surface, I'm sorry, not the town.
The county.
The county will not let us put any hard surface past where it is today. So I can't put any hard surface further to the, west
Canal.
as it is right now to the canal. Yeah. So, I mean, if I could add 10, 15 feet of that, then that is probably, problem would go away.
So your parking lot now, how many vehicles do you think you can fit in there?
25, right in there. Right in there, so. I guess I know where it's going. Understood. But for special events, let me understand, if I do have a special event, and maybe not just a typical band, but if I do have a different, like an anniversary party or something like that, I'm not included like the residents, where I can get that special permission.
Well, like, for example, what we used to do in the years past was when they have fundraisers for the fireworks and things like that, that's what I was referring to as a special event. That has been going on for years, especially that fundraising, I think it was at least 1 or 2 events for that. But again, I would look for, you know, if you have this planned out and things that are planned out, then you went to the board for an event permit, that would probably be the safest way to do it.
Understood.
And that's the process, just so you know, you have to go, the board has to approve the special events.
Understood.
Mike has a question.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, there's such a thing too as having somebody out there that he could hire to try to monitor this outside at least too, so that people wouldn't have to continually complain. You know, in other words, the business is doing well, you know, it'd pay to have someone that, you know, an establishment or hire to be outside to make sure people are parking properly. Because you can't just say, I'm calling the police department up and telling them about this, and then I've done my job. There's that ordinance until it's, you know, until it's settled one way or the other, something has to be done. It's just,
We did have a letter from Joe Manning. Would you care to speak, sir?
Yes, sir. Name's Joseph Maney, 28840 Beach Drive. First question I guess I got is the ordinance, no parking on the road right away or just the roadway? I believe it's the right of way and the road, right? Roadway, right of way.
But any town road, any township road.
So you all got a map of where the lots are there? Yeah. So I think the lot line in front of my house there, the road or property lot line is almost the edge of the pavement.
Yes, yes, it's like 17.5 feet on the roadway.
Right, there's only 17 and a half.
Looks like it's barely past that.
Maybe
Correct.
18 feet of road right away
Correct.
is all that's there.
This was when I came to you in October, was after I spoke with Joe. And we did have conversation about this being GIS. But it's within close enough distance that, yes, any vehicle getting off roadways. It's parked anywhere off roadways, gonna be past the right of way. We found on other roads within the township that, typically, it's 33 feet, the right of way, but that's not accurate in this township and probably others. So, for instance, it came up when we had snowmobile driving, what they thought was a right of way, and it turned out to be front yards, not on his, but, so I don't know, even having the engineer come out and showing you where the actual right of ways end, doesn't really change anything, because they're still not gonna be able to get them through the roadway, because the right of way is still part of the roadways.
And also right there with canal going off of there, any fire trucks or anybody turning, trying to get in or out of there, that's about the last place you want a car park, where they can typically parking off the roadway.
Anybody else? So we have an ordinance on parking on town roads. We want to give special dispensations for specific events. That's something that would have to come to the town. And can continue to invest in.
You'll be able to put your limits on parking, and so the residents will know enough ahead of time as it is. I do want to make sure you understand that they do the fireworks fundraiser down there, and something on New Year's Day or something. And I don't think any of the, from Joe's, excuse me for calling you Joe, Mr. Maney and I's conversation, it's not that he, it's bah humbug, I don't know anything, and Mr. Zerath was the same thing. It's, they all want to work together. They're coming to you guys to try to help them work this out. So,
All right, thank you.
I think I've already called them 4 times. I don't even bother anymore because nothing seems to happen, nothing changes. So it's time something gets done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to add to what Joe said. It's not just parking on the road. They park on our lawn, along our fence.
Something like that happens and we contact.
well, we're gonna get some resolution tonight.
Yeah.
So we know where we're at. There's like confusion like we had talked about. And we'll draft something tomorrow once we're told which direction you guys are moving in this.
Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say something. So the actual ordinance says there will be no parking on any roadways, it says or right of ways in the town of Waterford where prohibited by official signs. So I just keep hearing parking on roadways, but it actually says in the ordinance or right of ways, so that is included.
And that's what included. It's part of the roadway. We get it, but
But I'm just saying, it's one thing to get it, but it's one thing when it's written as well.
Yes, so what is the consensus with? So at this point, we have an ordinance, right? That needs to be enforced. It's my understanding if there's any special event, special dispensation, you'll have to come to the board, get permission, you can talk to the police, talk to the fire department. Permit from the clerk. It can't be something that's like every weekend. So, yeah. We can't allow, this business to say, well, we'll let people park on the road. And the other business, well, there's no parking on town roads. I mean, it's gotta be the same,
you know, we have an ordinance and it has to be fair and it has to be enforced. So we can do this for even like private parties that residential.
Right, observe, yeah,
Everybody.
everybody,
Everybody.
we get a lot of people that need to park on the road, and you need to come to the, so they can plan ahead.
So how many special events is he allowed in a year?
It's inside the building, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean,
The special events is only when they have outside music, but let him do whatever justice.
And how do the residents get notified of a special event?
yeah, that's,
Yeah, that's something that we're gonna have to work on, so. Everybody needs a parking. Yep, and they need to plan, we need to apply for permit, of course, and figure all that. So for the question is, I know we're not gonna set the plan. Yeah, and maybe on the permit, we need to. So maybe part of the permit, we need to contact your neighbors.
Like you said, you know, if they would call the police, then we would tell the police department, yes, they have a special permit for that day.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be at the meeting, if it's approved or any restrictions you place on it, it's gonna be in our notes. You're gonna have a nightmare of issues with now putting it on everybody because we were for parking permissions. This is what you're asking for, or more so what we're doing instead of special permits. It's really the parking issue, but no, you know, the residents have been doing it for 30 plus, I mean, for years and years. So how are they gonna know also know now, November of 2023, we have to start calling in or coming to the board?
Or even construction vehicles, yes, we sort of overlook it, but according to the ordinance, they're in violation.
Yes, but then.
I'm just saying, if you were, you know.
Perhaps the issue is the ordinance is wrong. The ordinance needs to be addressed,
The
but
ordinance
it's
does
not
need
just
to
a
be addressed.
blanket. There's so many ordinances in this book, it's just a blanket,
Yeah.
we're not doing it, and there's no nuance to it. And clearly there needs to be some nuance to these things.
That was the last part of gonna be my request, is something that you guys can look into.
So we need to review the ordinance, take a look at it, maybe make some amendments. So, you know, obviously the no parking on town roads is there for safety reasons. Maybe have some amendments to that, you know, to address some of those issues. That's something that we'll have to work on. And I'll take just two more real quick.
Before, when they were talking, one of the residents, she said she had a shower, okay, 4 years ago. Okay, so I don't think any of the residents have special events more than maybe once a year.
But
I just had a question, with that being said, that you're saying you're gonna have to work on it, like, what kind of timeline can we look at? Not just table it and never come back to it?
I don't do that.
Okay, well, I mean, so what kind of, I mean, can you guys
Yeah, we'll
say,
we'll look into it and we can put it on the agenda next month. Yes.
I do have.
Yeah, can you come up, Christie?
It's 1% at a time, please. They're saying they can't understand online, so
address, please. It's kind of get the back.
I do have a party every year for the 4th of July, and I do park. I do get my permit. I ask, and Officer Nelson knows, they do park on the road. They're there for a few hours. And so now I'm not gonna be able to have this anymore because,
We're looking at redoing the ordinance.
well, what was your name and address? Shelley Mossman, 28906 Beach Drive. I get permit, you know, I ask my neighbors if it's okay with them that I have this party, and every year it's been okay. But I don't know, and I do visit the bar. My family does. I bought my house on Beach Drive because the bar is there. And I know that bar has been there for a long time, longer than
y'all have been alive. And you knew growing up that the bar was there.
Things change.
She used to have parking all across the whole back.
That's, okay, thank you. Again, we were talking about getting a special dispensation. If you have it once in your party, that's something that we'll look into. You know, we could make some amendments like that, to fit things like that in.
You get it the same as an anniversary or,
Right.
this graduation party.
They had that currently, or it's been for as long as I can remember, 31 years I've been here. Special events, or special, having a party, 4th of July, or a birthday party, or wedding shower, or whatever they're having. That was a call that came in to the police department. We discussed what roadway was on for hazards. Work on one side, how long is it gonna be, number of cars, and we were given or denied permission, usually always given permission. This, what is on the agenda tonight is different from what this is, so please don't get that confused. I said, that's what's gonna cause your biggest
Yes.
can of worms. So I think you gotta get back to focusing on a business. It's not just
We're
this
talking
business.
about, right, parking on the roads on a weekly, bi-weekly
I
basis.
think Mr. Sackman said he wanted everybody to be treated equally.
So, but they're not running a business out of their house.
Everybody's not on equal standing. There are differences. I mean, I don't follow the same rules as the chairwoman does because I live out in the country on ag. You know, everybody is not coming from the same foundation from which you can treat everybody equally if the circumstances and conditions are not also equal.
Town roads are town roads.
Right, but just getting back to the watering hole on Beach Drive, you know, the width of the road down there, the width of the fire truck, width of vehicles, it's a safety issue.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't I check to see what everybody agreed to 30 years ago? And that included the owners of this establishment. And see what they agreed to, because it was angle parking at that time.
Tina did look, I believe, into the minutes because someone kept saying there was an agreement, so she researched and did not find anything in official minutes.
No, but I will see if I can find it. I got records.
In official minutes?
No, I may have the records with my own notes. What took place that night. Let me look. Go back
Written agreement?
50 years.
If there's a written agreement, and again, I want to be very clear, there's be no more unwritten rules, there'll be rules for everyone to follow that we're all aware of, that's written.
Let me see what I can find there.
And come up with a draft for next month's
Yeah, we'll
meeting.
come up with a draft for next month's meeting, we won't kick it down the road, we'll get it done.
We will start enforcing the parking, no parking.
Yes, thank you, in the
Beach Drive.
meantime, thank you.
Regarding the parking for apples to apples, there was a special permit or an ordinance made, for parking along the road, North Michigan, from North Lake, so many hundreds of feet going south on the west side of the road. There's an ordinance on the sign, special provision parking for, I believe it's the winter months, 3 months of the year, parking is allowed. Across the street from the cruise, the sign's still there. There's an ordinance on that, just make sure nothing gets mixed up. But I don't know the ordinance number, but that should be looked at.
Signs there.
So we're gonna draft something that makes sense, and we'll come back next month. Okay? All right, and next. Okay, we have a request from the sanitary district for an increase in salary. I'm gonna let Dale take that away as a liaison. And I'm just gonna step down because I work for the sanitary district, so take it away, Dale.
Okay, well, there was a little bit of confusion earlier about what the sanitary district salaries were.
Hey, Dale,
Uh-huh.
can you move your mic a little bit
Oh,
closer? You're having trouble.
sure.
Thank you.
There was a bit of confusion as to what the current salaries are for sanitary commissioners. They currently earn $333 a month, or $3,996 per year. All three commissioners, including the president, earn the same. There was a request to increase The commissioner's salary, we suggested $400 a month, which would be $4,800 a year. The president, Dan Dickinson, is going to be starting a major systems upgrade in the next 3 years that require a lot of commissioners' time in design and development. It's like a $66.5 million project. So he's requesting an increase. And I would suggest $650 a month or $7,800 a year for the president's salary. Because it is going to eat up a lot of this time, and they haven't had an increase in like 20 years, so I think that's a reasonable amount. What was it again you're requesting? Going for the two commissioners, from $333 a month to $400 a month. And for the president, who was receiving the same $330, suggest going to $650 a month.
I think it's a huge increase.
Well, there's gonna be a huge increase in his time to work on his systems upgrade over the next few years. So, as an engineer, his time is valuable, and we have to put in a lot of time.
Once we put this in place, it's permanent. My thought is that there's a big project coming up, and I'd have to, we just got this the other day, can we look into it and make an allowance and do it, okay, a one-time thing for doing this additional work stuff. I do agree the president should be different, but you know, they have 6-year terms, they're completely different how it operates.
I realize that, correct.
So I hate to put something in place permanently for forever. I mean, I'm not in the sewer district. I'm just outside of it. I'm a farmer, but I think it's a lot to put on, you know, right off the bat, and the proposal they gave us was completely wrong.
Well, we could approve the proposal for 600 per quarter.
Yeah, let me save some money. But this also does not include, I'm sure they're gonna stick with the mileage, similar to what we do, a little bit. But you're talking about raising the prison sanitary higher than what many of the supervisors are doing, and we kept our salary flat for the last 4 or 5 years. No increases. I understand the reasoning for it, but I just think it's, that's my 2 cents.
What do you suggest?
I'll, for discussion, you brought up a proposal. What do you guys think? I really haven't had time to research it. I brought up on Friday when I couldn't get back at the, I know this is not right because they brought this up years ago too.
I would just saw the correction.
Correct.
So did I.
But I knew it was wrong Friday when I came in.
Okay, so is there a motion?
There's no motion.
Table for a month?
I say we table it right now. Do more research.
Table for a month, and so do more research.
I'll second.
Aye. Aye.
It's tabled.
Okay, table for next month, more information. Maybe have Dan come in and talk to us. Have Dan come in and talk to us. Usually when you want something, you usually come in first.
Okay.
Have your report from. They can hear you, but it's muffled. We need to move it closer.
There's a report from the cooperative boundary group that we have Tom M. on.
We do.
Online there, and he is going to give us the report on the small group with the village and their town working on border agreement. He's calling in from Florida. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Terry. Heather, can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Give me just a second here. All right, real quickly, the update from the boundary committee, or boundary subcommittee that is working with the village. So that's myself, Dale, and Doug. The group has met 2 more times since my last report at the October town board meeting. Our focus has been primarily on planning the community listening session that is now scheduled for December 5th. Announcements have gone out on that and are posted on the town website. A couple things about that. Number one, it's important to emphasize that this is not a public hearing, as is outlined in the state's boundary plan processes. There has been no cooperative boundary plan that's been drafted yet. The subcommittee really thinks it's important to ensure an open, bi-directional communication with the community throughout this entire process. So that is why we're focusing on holding this listening session as a start to that process. So a couple things to expect with that listening session on December 5th. Number one, we're going to provide a short presentation to get things going, just kind of outlining what a cooperative boundary plan is, sort of as it's laid out by the state, the potential scope of what these things can include. A lot of the discussion seems to be very much oriented around where the boundaries are going to be drawn, you know, kind of who's in, who's out, those kinds of things. But the reality is that these cooperative boundary agreements can be much broader than simply where the boundaries are placed into the future. So it's important that people understand that. There's also a set of state standards and expectations that any of these agreements need to hold to. And we want to make sure that people understand what those standards are and what they mean. Also provide an update just in general in terms of where we are in the process and the learnings that we've had so far as a group, which have been good ones, you know, coming to a collective understanding of what these things are all about and what they could potentially mean for the greater Waterford region overall. So the format, just to kind of level set on the format of what the listening sessions kind of look like, pretty simply, we're going to largely focus on providing significant amount of open time for community questions and input. Probably start with just some basic introductions of the subcommittee and, you know, who we are, the summary of our work to date, short presentation covering the topics that I just mentioned above, and then largely focus on listening to, you know, everyone who takes the time to come and voice their questions and provide input to the group, because that is going to be taken seriously as we go forward and work to draft, you know, a draft plan that ultimately would go to both the town and village boards for consideration. The last thing I kind of want to emphasize, and this is in the announcement that's been posted, is there's an opportunity for the community to submit questions ahead of time via an email address, a special purpose email address that's been provided in that announcement. And we welcome any questions that people want to provide up front so that we have the opportunity to effectively prepare for those and consider, you know, a thoughtful reply. So that's my update. Terry, any other thoughts or questions? Dale, Doug, anything that you guys have to add?
No, you covered everything quite thoroughly, Tom.
I want to thank you guys for all your extra time and work and effort put into this, and we'll see where this takes us. And I want to apologize. I don't know what happened. I just skipped over a couple things. It's been a long day. I'm sorry. We're looking at Tanya, talking about backyard chickens. You want to come up?
Tanya Maggie, 1611 Big Bend Road. So this was kind of twofold. It includes backyard chickens under the ordinance of 5.23, but I did have concerns about that ordinance. Specifically, it starts that no parcels of land having less than 3 acres in size, nor any residentially zoned parcel may be used to keep any domestic animals. And then it says including but not limited to, and lists some, but domestic animals, I mean, so right there, you're talking dogs, cats, you know, gerbils, that kind of thing. And so the wording right there should be changed. That shouldn't even be included in there. If you look it up in the dictionary, it says domestic animals, and it will even include an example of a dog in there. So basically, 90% of the town of Waterford is probably right now not in compliance with this
ordinance. Then it goes on to say that parcels of land having more than 3 acres shall be limited to one of the animals referenced above. And then 1 acre thereafter, you can have another one. Again, 3 acres is a lot of land. And to only permit 1 animal per 3 acres, number one, is cruel to the animal. Most of the animals that you're talking about, riding horses, ponies, donkeys, goats, poultry, those are herd and flock animals, and that's actually cruel to only have 1. So that again, just shouldn't even be worded that way, because it doesn't make any sense. To go back as well too, I forgot this part, it says unless given specific permission by the town board. Kind of have issue with that, because this should be just an overall ordinance. I don't feel like giving certain people specific permission, that just shouldn't be, it's not equitable. And then failure to comply shall result in a forfeiture not to exceed $200 or 8 days in the county jail for failure to pay. Ouch. Again, we're all probably not in compliance, so we all should be either in jail or paying fines. And then each day, any of the above animals in violation is a separate offense. And so those are the reasons why I kind of take, I kind of cringe at this ordinance. And I think that needs to really be.
And let me just interject really quick.
Yes.
We looked over that, and you know, it is an older ordinance, and yes, it needs to be more clear. What people, you know, normally look at is, right, that the spirit, you're talking about like the spirit of the law, the intent of the law, the intent of an ordinance or resolution. And I think everyone here could probably agree that the intent wasn't to put someone in jail if they had a dog in their yard. I don't think that's ever happened the whole time we've had this, but we do accept and understand that the language could be made more clear. So we will work on that. And you know, and we've looked at some other ordinances like from Norway, other surrounding municipalities, maybe even just like domestic animals can be, you know, changed to livestock, things like that. About amount of acreage, sometimes it's not only just for you know, rules of the person owner, but it's for the health of the animal. My parents raised horses, they had Arabian horses, and I know that they needed a certain amount of acres for each horse because it's for the health and well-being of the animal. Sort of things like that need to be considered as well. So I do agree and understand that this could be and will be more clear. We need to amend it, but I do understand the spirit and the intent of the ordinance, and it's definitely not to put someone in jail for having a dog.
But I think what's happened, and not just with this ordinance, but with other ordinances from this town, is that the way that they are worded now, so you can say, well, that wasn't our intention, but yet it's what it says. And so now you're leaving this open to so many different interpretations or so many different, well, but in this case, well, in that case, see that with the parking ordinance, you know, and where if a municipality is gonna write an ordinance, it should be very clear and concise as to what that ordinance entails, so there's no room for, well, that's not what we meant, but it's what it says, and so that's just my comment on that.
Yes, I do know we were looking into this a couple of years ago, to redo this, because we did notice that. And at the time, I looked up what domesticated animal was, because I'm like, well, that's house animals. Cattle is considered domesticated animals, and so I think that was their intent probably many years ago.
Right.
Versus wild animal. like
Well,
a-
domesticated, well, basically, it's any animal that can be tamed.
Right.
So yeah, it could be a cow, a chicken, a duck, you know, whatever, but it also includes dogs, cats, and those types of
And we
things.
do have a keeping of certain animals also where, our dog ordinance, we do have a dog
I was gonna
ordinance,
say, you can have
you
no
have,
more
you
than
have 3
3.
dogs.
Right.
We do have a limit on the dogs. So
Right.
That is,
Right.
and we don't have a limit on
Situations
cats.
and
Yeah.
things like that, yeah.
Right.
Right,
I
so we
understand
gotta
that.
change kind of both of them simultaneously, actually, because they go
Yeah.
hand in hand.
I think we can adopt East Troy's wording for chapter 189, keeping of livestock. Any wild or domestic animal normally used or raised on a farm, including but not not specifically, but not exclusively horses, cattle, mules, sheep, goats, swine, chickens, ducks, turkeys, mink, and pigeons, but does not include cats or dogs or small animals kept exclusively in the home. So I think that would clarify the ordinance.
Okay, well, don't, before you do that, because now I'm gonna talk about backyard chickens. Okay, so.
Pigeons either.
This has been brought up before, before with the town board, about 6 years ago. And so the Bogatkas back in 2017 had brought up and they had requested, to have backyard chickens. They were shut down, and some of the reasons that they were shut down were, because they were concerned about the amount of land that they have. They have a third of an acre. It was overtaxing the police force and what was the other one? Oh, potential water runoff impacts. So I went through, and then obviously the first things that come up is, well, they smell, they'll make noise, and they're gonna bring vermin into the area. So what I wanted to point out, because I know you all have this, what I wanted to point out is that, so 6 years ago, back in 2017, Tammy went to surrounding municipalities, Norway, East Troy, Rochester, and then I added the village because they do have an ordinance that allows for chicken. So she went back in 2017 and she asked pretty much the same questions that I then turned around now in 2023. And so when it came to the questions of, you know, are there any complaints? So you've allowed this, some of the municipalities have allowed it since 2014. So they've allowed this for quite a few years. And there have been, for now 6 years, there have been no complaints from any of these municipalities about noise, about smell, about their property values going down. We also got, again, back then and then today, that this poses no concern about impacting negatively the waterways. The few chickens that will be considered as pets or whatever in the town of Waterford are nothing compared to the geese and the fowl that are on our waterways. There's just no comparison. And it was the Racine Department of Health and the DNR both concluded and said, no, this will not impact them at all. As for taxing the police, again, 6 years, there has been no municipality that has come back and said that these things, that having chickens has burdened the police beyond what they should be, you know, overtaxing them so they can't do their jobs or whatever. Very little has even called into the police. Most of them have been right to the municipality. What's sad is that the complaints that do come in are neighbors calling on other neighbors. You're only supposed to have 4 chickens, you have 5. Or do they have a permit to do this? So, I mean, that to me is just very sad because that's just not being very neighborly. And that's not to me a legitimate reason to call in on your neighbor for having backyard chickens, which pets. Okay, so real quick, some of the facts and myths about keeping backyard chickens. Chickens are smelly and dirty. Chickens actually spend hours each day dust bathing and preening themselves to maintain good hygiene. Chickens do not smell. Animal waste smells. Dog poop smells. Cat poop smells. The benefit of having chickens over other pets is that you can actually compost that and then use that for fertilizer for your gardens, which you cannot do that with dog or cat feces. And so chickens actually have a benefit that other pets do not have. Chickens hurt property values. There's never been any evidence to back that up. In fact, a Forbes list of the top 100 or of the top 10 US housing markets appreciating in value showed all 10 permit chicken keeping. Chickens are noisy. Hens are not noisy. And roosters are no noisier in volume or frequency than a barking dog. At 1 meter, a barking dog is 70 to 100 dB. A lawnmower is 107. A rooster is 48. So the hens would even be quieter. Chickens require a lot of land. No, they don't. Anywhere from 1 to 15 square feet, depending on the size and whatever of the chicken. In fact, most urban cities, New York, Denver, Chicago, Milwaukee, they keep chickens with no acreage at all. Chickens attract rodents and predators. You can say the same thing about people who feed backyard birds, okay? It's kind of on that same line. So unless you want to ban people from feeding backyard birds and those kinds of things, chickens aren't going to pose any more of a threat that way. And then chickens are kept for only egg production. Chickens are kept for many reasons, including as pets, therapy animals, hobby show birds, forage project animals, and to preserve heritage breeds in danger of extinction. If you were to go online, you would see that there is a plethora of places that sell toys for chickens, clothes for chickens, all sorts of things for chickens. And so people take their chickens very seriously, and most consider them pets and not just a farm animal. So now I want to get into the part that I feel is kind of becomes this government overreach. So again, let's talk about zoning and original intent. The concept of land use zoning was largely non-existent in the US at the beginning of the 20th century, but it quickly became the norm. Around 1910 to 1920, the purpose was to protect homeowners in residential areas from devaluation by industrial and apartment uses. Most zoning codes are permissive use regulations. And so nobody wants a developer planting a high-rise apartment behind their backyard or a funeral home in the lot next door. Most zoning codes contain no provision sanctioning the raising of chickens as a permitted residential land use, because zoning was intended to protect private property values from being adversely affected by undesirable commercial land uses. And because our forefathers could never imagine a time when permission would be needed to feed their families food that they grew or raised. Not only was permission not required under the law, the government promoted it, encouraging families that did not already keep chickens during World War I to keep chickens as a patriotic duty. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Whereas the right to food protects the right of all human beings to be free from hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition, which is recognized in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as part of the right to an adequate standard of living, Article 25. Whereas all domesticated animals are recognized as personal property with ownership rights and liabilities retained by the one with a rightful claim to ownership, even when the animals have strayed from the owner's property. Therefore, any law or ordinance made or enforced by any state or local government which abridges the ability of any citizens of the United States to provide for themselves an adequate standard of living, or attempts to deprive any citizen of the United States of security in their food source or of personal property where no constitutional law has been broken, should be deemed unconstitutional. A lot of these laws, or a lot of these ordinances that you would maybe consider to put upon the residents of this town, you probably already have them in the ordinances that exist. For example, under ordinance 5.06, public nuisances, section H, you have the keeping or harboring of any animal by which its frequent or habitual howling, yelping, barking, crowing, or making of other noises shall greatly annoy or disturb a neighborhood or any considerable number of persons within the town. And so I don't know if you guys are aware of this. It just came out that there is a bill that will be introduced in the state of Wisconsin that would allow for every property owner in the state of Wisconsin to keep up to 4 birds, chickens, ducks, that type of thing in Wisconsin. While I appreciate that sentiment, it's a bill that says we have the basic human right to raise our own food, and they want to make sure that people across Wisconsin actually have that right. But what's sad is there's a partner bill. The fact that government feels that they have to give us a right to raise our own food or to raise certain animals as pets is just government overreach. The sad part is there's a brother bill that goes with this that is also going to make its way through that gives us permission to have backyard gardens. And so this backyard gardens.
Oh.
And so this in cohesion with those two things is, it just kind of blows my mind. Like, how did we get to this point where we have to ask the government to have these things on our own private property? Ordinances that are written so ignorantly and carelessly should be removed immediately and replaced with sensible and constitutionally based ordinances instead. Ones that fulfill the responsibility of government to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare and security, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Ordinances do not forbid citizens from the right to pursue happiness. And most people would agree that raising pets is a legal activity that does not infringe on the rights of others. And so in closing, I would just ask that if you're going to consider whatever you're going to consider here, that you would do it from the point of, and this was brought up earlier, that ordinances are made from the place of safety, okay? What safety net does there need to be in order for people to have chickens? I've never heard of a hen going and attacking people and anybody ending up in a hospital because of a chicken. So I think it needs to be not from personal opinions or personal perspectives. You think it's silly, you think it's stupid, it's not economically feasible. That shouldn't be. It should be, what is the safety issue to protect this town against people having chickens in their backyard? Okay, does anybody have any questions based on the packets that I gave?
Thank you, Tony. I just want to say 2 things. I've already drafted, I've already looked at Town of Norway. Actually, the Village of Waterford, if you look at their permit, it's pretty restrictive.
I would say
I
all
probably
of them.
wouldn't want chickens anymore after reading all that. Okay, so
I wasn't happy with any of the municipalities,
So, I mean,
to be honest with
looking
you.
at the villages and, you know, Rochester, Norway, and other ones, I kind of drafted up like a hybrid that I gave to everyone, and that's something that we can look at and talk. And I'm very conservative. I totally agree. I don't like the government telling me I have to get a COVID shot. I don't like any of that stuff. But what I will say is that at some point, just so you understand, there does need to be some type of regulations. So I was talking to somebody on the phone. They said, well, I should be able to do whatever I want with my property, well, as long as my neighbor doesn't do this. Okay, well, it can't be, well, I should be able to do anything I want. Well, my neighbor should be doing anything they want, as long as it's something I don't like. So we you know, as a body, we need to tread very carefully on, we don't want to, you know, infringe on anybody's rights or be restrictive. But we also need to put some regulations in place to make sure that everyone can enjoy where they are and not have their freedoms and enjoyments taken away by their neighbor who decides to do something. So, and I'm not talking about chickens, I'm just in general, right? Chickens don't bother me. But in general, we have to be careful about that. There are certain restrictions and regulations that government has to do. I mean, that's why we have laws. That's why we have police. So I don't want to go too far down that road if I should be able to do anything I want on my property. But yeah, I mean, I have drafted a chicken ordinance. And then, so I want everybody's input on what they like, what they don't like, what they would change or not change. And I appreciate all the work.
So can I just say this, at my former job, I had to attend enough village meetings and stand up with some of the ordinances from a business perspective, and some of them were government overreach. And I got to a point with the village where I said to them, because I would ask them, why? Why is this ordinance here? What does this, explain it to me so it makes sense to me why it's even here? Because to me, it just looks like you're trying to control everybody. And so they did, they would sit down and they would explain things. And then I kind of started this mantra with them and I said, okay, that's great. I'm thank you for explaining that to me. Now I can take that information and as a mature adult who owns a business or has property can now take that information and say, okay, based on that, this is what I'm going to do, da, da, da. And so my mantra became educate, don't regulate. You know, when we are micromanaged and regulated by everything, okay, it just might start with backyard chickens, but why is that brother bill already from the state of Wisconsin about, well, you can have a backyard garden? Well, backyard has me alarmed because what about the front yard? You know, what's next? You know, and so the further we start going down that regulate, then it gets so far, we can't ever pull it back. And so I'm always gonna go on the side of property owners' rights, and we should not be overregulated and we should not be micromanaged.
Yeah, I don't speak for, but I don't think anyone on this board wants to or has the time to micromanage everyone. We just want to make ordinances that make sense, that everybody can have enjoyment of living here. And so we do have a chicken thing drafted, so I give the floor to somebody else who wants to say
We
anything
have
about
a
it.
question from Ms. McGuire in the back there.
Yeah, come on up.
Hello, Tammy Bagaka, 30312 Beachview Lane. Thank you for bringing this up so easily. I think for Tanya, I went through much difficulties even just trying to talk to some of you guys, so I appreciate it. I've had 7 years to kind of reflect on my efforts back in 2016, 2017. It is time to bring the town of Waterford to the 21st century on urban poultry. Let's look at all of the surrounding communities. Okay, Norway, East Troy. It's been 7 years. Do they still have the ordinance in place? Yeah. Have they had major problems? Have you heard on the news? City of Racine, their urban chickens got loose and, okay, everyone is doing, many communities are doing this successfully with no problems. Why shouldn't we? So I am relieved to hear that you guys are finally presenting a draft of an ordinance to let the people in this community be able to choose what they want to do with their property in a way that makes sense. So that is all. Thank you.
Can I just add something real quick? So I think there's this thought or this consensus that if backyard chickens are allowed, like the whole town of Waterford is gonna be overrun with everybody having backyard chickens.
It's the gateway foul, Tanya. Everybody knows this.
And based on the other municipalities, that is just not true.
Right.
Norway has had 5 families in 5 years. East Troy, the village has 3. East Troy, since 2014, they require a one-time registration only. So since 2014, they've had 22. Rochester has 18. Like this is, and the people who are gonna do this understand that I'm not doing this to save money on my eggs, because you're not gonna save money on your eggs. The chicken coops and the feed and everything else are expensive, but again, there's a lot of reasons why people wanna do this, and so they should have the right to do it. And it's not gonna overburden the system. It's just not. We're not gonna have chickens everywhere. Because people understand, just like if we're getting a dog or any kind of pet, a lot is required, and probably more so with backyard chickens.
Thank you. Right.
I'd just like to throw one thing out. We did have a couple of families that came last March in Deer Run subdivision. And that subdivision has a restrictive covenant against keeping fowl. And so we couldn't go against a subdivision ordinance, so.
That I get, and if they're
So
gonna
if you
sign
buy
their
into a
rights away that
subdivision
way,
that
that's
doesn't
on
allow
them.
poultry, then.
And I do have that covered in.
Yeah.
The town shouldn't care about anybody's homeowners association restrictive covenant says a contractual agreement made when you purchase the house.
Right.
The town's ordinances apply to the town. If they want to contract those away, that's up to them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if a government is going to restrict rights, they have to have a compelling reason to do so, and then do so in the least restrictive way possible. A blanket ban is the most restrictive thing that we can do. And here are two ordinances tonight, and the polystructure one is a third, that is just a blanket ban without nuance. And there might be more in the books too, that these really need to be revisited and written in a way that makes sense.
I'd like to just add, in the draft that I drafted, number 5 says, the applicant should check all the rules and regulations of their neighborhood or owners association prior to making the application. The town is not responsible for issuing a permit that violates any such rules or regulations. Yes.
I think just because of the way this lady came prepared, give her the chickens.
No, I'm gonna say, I'm not even asking for permission from me. I'm asking permission for the community.
I believe also, I think it's the town of Raymond, their chicken ordinance is actually not a chicken ordinance, it's a no roosters ordinance. And I think that is a fantastic way of doing it, because roosters, you know, they can be aggressive, they make noise, and they don't provide the eggs that hens do. Rather than having, long specifications of.
Somebody else?
As long as it, I raise chickens, I mean, we've got chicken on our 2 farms, so chickens can be messy animals, I'm just saying that. They're a lot of work, I mean, because my son discovered his 26, and same thing when we raised the pigs on North Lake Drive. So, I'm for as long as they're gonna be fenced in and not roaming the yard. Because I've had a lot of people in the township that live on the lake, don't only wanna have chickens next to them. And it's gonna become a problem, I'm just, just like our fence ordinance was a problem, we got rid of that too. You got people with big houses and they're gonna be a chicken coop next to them, they're not gonna like it. So, it's my 2 cents, I mean.
You can say that about a lot of things. I could not like that the next door neighbor has a boat parked in there, whatever, and inhibits my view of the next neighbor or whatever. It's like, we don't have the right to tell anybody else what they can or cannot do on their property when it's within the confines, obviously, of what's law.
No, then they can buy a bigger lot and they can have their chickens. I mean, we have bigger lots, just like I
We
said on
had,
North Lake Drive.
before we knew that there was a chicken ordinance, because honestly, we live in a town, why would there be a chicken or why would there be no chickens allowed? We had on a 2/3 acre, I got 12 chickens, Jim built me a chicken coop. We went to the neighbors, we said, do you mind? None of them minded. So we proceeded to have our chickens, and it was on our lot line with the neighbors, we had some shrubs or whatever. 6 months later, our neighbors are talking to us, they're like, hey, I thought you were gonna get chickens. We had them for 6 months, they didn't even know it. There was no smell, there was no noise, there was no nothing. People who are going to do this are going to take care of their
Well, I was
chickens.
gonna say, unfortunately, there are the good chicken keepers, and then unfortunately, with everything, there's gonna be
But you
the bad
can't,
chicken owners.
but you can't punish a whole town because somebody might decide to be a
So-
bad chicken owner.
In the military,
Then deal
we
with
had
the bad chicken
We
owner.
had a phrase, and please excuse me a little bit, but when one person poops themselves, everybody's in diapers. That's the wrong approach.
Right.
We take care of the bad apples instead of punishing everybody.
Right, so I did draft an ordinance, I don't know if anyone took a look at it, if you wanna discuss it,
Mr. Guy has another.
I'm sorry, one last comment
sure.
for myself. Tim, I'm sorry. I have 3 boys. They're loud, they are messy, and I'm sure there are neighbors that probably have opinions on that. I also have a neighbor that lives nearby that has many dogs, and they don't pick up after them. Okay, I have my opinions on that, but I'm also neighborly.
Yes.
And you handle situations as they come. Okay. And 7 years ago, you tried telling me the same thing about, oh, these big homes on Michigan, they're not gonna like. I'm sorry, what about the little homes that are on Lake
It's
Michigan?
fine. I mean, I said that, but
I
it
mean,
goes both ways, is all I'm saying, Tammy. It goes both ways. I mean, I'm not saying I'm for or against it. When eggs were, I don't have to bring the price things up. First off, I don't eat eggs. My whole family does. But when eggs were high, man, we're good that we had somebody in our family making, having chicken, stuff like that.
And I-
But again, it's a pet, but I'm gonna tell you, anybody's not gonna have a chicken inside their home like a dog or cat.
Look at the surrounding communities, go back to all the facts, look at all the surrounding communities and see if they're having these problems.
I understand that, but also,
That's
there's
all-
research
that's all
on
I
the
wanted
both
to
ways,
say.
yeah. Well, reasons not to have chicken, and there's 14-4, and there's, you can debate this all night. I'm not for or against, I've had chickens. I mean, I had nothing to do with them, but we had them.
I'm getting hungry for dinner. I think I want some fried chicken, so I think we're gonna move along. We do have a draft ordinance. Do we want to talk about the draft ordinance or what do we want to?
Sure, let's, put it together for next month.
I agree with Dale, I want to pretend to read it.
Okay, so we're gonna put it on for next month.
I'll make a motion to.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
I'd just like to ask, is this intended to apply to the farms with chickens as well, or is this a residential?
I read the ordinance.
Yeah, we can't pass any ordinances affecting agricultural operations. The right to farm is a state statute.
We should make that.
That should be up front on there, yeah.
Okay, we have the first and second, more discussion, on favor?
Aye.
Okay. Bids for office flooring. So Heather and Sheena again have done a lot of work. There's no question that the carpet in the office needs to be changed. We've had a few sewer backups. Not pretty, okay? It's been clean, but it's not clean, okay? That's not a question. So we've had a couple bids, and you guys have those papers, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's around. So we've got the two.
on
Friday. Yeah, that's okay, they can look at mine.
I didn't see them in my packet either.
So we've got the one with Badger that's a little bit cheaper, and Badger also did the tile out there, and they did a good job. So that's what we're leaning toward.
Oh. Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we go with the low bid, which is Badger Tile and Marble, which I believe is $9,000.
Yes.
And Heather, do you have any input on that? Any knowledge of the contractors?
And it might
We
be
did the
that.
one that was, we did the hallway. All of the ones that we bid out were local Waterford people.
So Badger did the hallway?
He did the hallway, he did really good.
He did a superb job there.
Yep. He said it could potentially go to 500 depending, what did he say at the bottom?
And floor prep.
Right, so, but he didn't know for
So
sure.
we know that they do good work, and they're the
But he
lower
would
bid.
still be lower
so.
than the second bid. So that's why I made a motion.
So did we have a motion?
Yeah, Doug does.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We already did the report from the Bureau, go up.
Yes, I was gonna recommend wait till after the holidays.
Oh, I'm
And-
sorry, did you say May?
So, just get through one more winter and then do it in spring.
We were gonna do it before, hopefully for
Yeah,
before the
it's,
first of the year.
it's been damaged by sewer.
Well, I understand that, but there's a lot of stuff involved in there and it's, I'm, whatever you guys wanna do, I lost. So,
Okay. All right, my report, we've had 4 or 5 budget hearings. I went back to doing budget workshops again because that's the only way to really get a good grip on what's going on, for everyone to understand. So thank you most of you for making most of those. We'll continue to do that every year. Our budget has been posted and there'll be a public hearing on that on November 27th, 30. We have word from Greg Horth, our new county board supervisor. He's doing a great job, by the way. That FEMA, now this has nothing to do with the town, we can't do anything about it, this isn't us. FEMA has made changes to the floodplain area that may affect some parcel owners, mostly north of the Iron Bridge. Again, not a town issue. Any questions, anything like that, please contact the county board for that, okay? I'm assuming that because of the floodplain is changing, insurance rates might have stuff to do with that. So you might want to check with the county board and see what's going on with that. We are doing recodification of ordinances. We're in the final stretch of that. We'll keep you updated with that. It comes to the planning commission and then we have a hearing on that. In October, Tina, Heather, and I attended the Wisconsin Towns Association Annual Conference. It was a lot of learning with elections and a lot of other learning that we did to help us improve our service, even though I don't think Tina and Heather could possibly improve their service to you. And there was some talk that I heard about our DPW plowing for a Michigan fire, and I just want to make it clear that that was part of the negotiations in their contract. To me, and I'm guessing to everyone in this room, it'll be really important for the rescue and the fire to be able to get out of the parking lot before anybody else. So that's something that was negotiated in their contract, and Doug and I were with Attorney Dubas last week, redoing the new contract, and that will be negotiated in that contract as well. So that's about all I have for that. I think we do. Did we have any more public comment that we didn't get? Mr. Meany? Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wonder what we're gonna be a pure permit. Oh, yes. Yes. So this is, yes. There's a pure permit that was approved by the planning commission in September. The application was stated that it was like a 4x8. And
4x4.
when he came in, it ended up being 4x80. I know some questions were asked, but I think that the situation is because the application said 4x8, the neighbors didn't get a chance, right?
4x4, I think is what it
Basically,
said.
4x4.
Yeah.
It did say.
So I will let you speak.
Well, I guess it's more of a thing about legality. I personally don't care about the pure one way or the other. There was 4x4 approximately there for decades. I couldn't make it to the meeting at 5:30, so I talked to Tina about it. He says, if you're doing something different than 4x4, that says, I think it should be moved to the next planning commission meeting.
Yeah, and I know that there was discussion about that there. I don't know if you, I don't know if you were there or not. And I've had so much stuff
Water
going on, I don't remember specifically, but I will tell you that I will look into it.
It's more the legality, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess other things frustrated me in the neighborhood, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start doing things the legal way now, I guess.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
So now that it's 80 foot long, or some places it's 3 foot between the pier and the bank. You know, it's not right up against the bank. It's now 4, 5, 6, 7 feet out.
And then obviously they didn't take a picture after they were done with it.
No, well, this
Yeah,
is,
so-
it was just approved.
Yeah, we don't see pairs.
And we did ask for clarification when they were approving, we're like, you're approving 80 feet, and they said,
Was
yes.
there a print?
Yeah,
I
and
don't have it in
there were
front of me. Was there-
questions.
Brent, you said 4x4 times 8 of them, or what is it? I didn't see the permit.
4x4.
No, it was just supposed to be like a 4x4. I said,
But that could be
and then it cha-
sectioned,
and then
and
it
he
changed.
could identify, I don't know.
No,
what he did.
it said pier length from shore, 3 to 4 feet, and then pier width, 4 feet, but it's actually 80 feet.
And I remember that there was
Yeah, I've seen it. I know
discussion.
what he's talking about.
But this is what they, I think this is a copy too.
Permit was for
Yeah, there was discussion about it, and I will definitely look into that. I don't remember exactly how that happened and went down, but, well, I'll look into it and I'll get back to you.
Because I think the letter says it was approved for 80.
Yeah.
So
I think.
I guess I wanted to make point too that it's, you know, more than up against the shore now. It's, which I think it was concerned at the time that it's gonna be boats pretty beyond the middle of the canal when they're parked there. So fire or police getting through
Yeah.
there, it's gonna be an
Yeah.
issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming and for speaking and sharing your opinions, and I have a
Motion to
motion.
adjourn.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second.
Then just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, could I just mention that the village Christmas parade
Oh, yeah.
is December 2nd at 5 PM. So,
What day of the week is that?
Saturday. It's a very well attended event, and they have been doing fireworks after, I don't know if they are. but
Yes.
Just want to let everybody know it starts here and runs to the south, and then west on Main Street.
Thank you, Ed.
I think the fireworks is at Tennis Club Park.
They line up.
They're gonna move it down to Whitford,
Okay.
but, there will be a roll call here at 4 o'clock.
For the board members.
We did last year.
Yes, it's at 4 o'clock this year.
Tim, any more events?
We're done.
You know? Okay, all right, we have a first and second, all in favor? Adjourn at 7:30.
Heather?